Welcome to this session. I'm really excited to be here and talk to you about how you can accelerate your team's machine learning journey with AWS Deep Racer. My name is Amit Kalawat. I'm a Principal Solutions Architect at Amazon Web Services. I work with our enterprise customers as they are transforming their business and journey to cloud. I'm also part of AWS Deep Racer Pit Crew and have had the opportunity to participate in multiple workshops around Deep Racer and train our customers and partners on reinforcement learning. Let's go through the agenda of today's discussion. So we will be talking about machine learning on AWS, and then I will introduce AWS Deep Racer to you. That will be followed by in-person AWS Deep Racer events overview. And then we will also talk about virtual AWS Deep Racer events. At the end, I'll show you how you can use AWS Deep Racer console to organize and create your community races. There are a bunch of demos at the end, and hopefully you are able to derive some value from it. All right, let's talk about machine learning on AWS. So if you see on the slide, we are showing AWS ML Stack, and we like to think about machine learning in 3 different layers. And we believe in fullness of time, most organizations who have significant technology capability will end up using all three of these layers. And at each layer of the stack, we are constantly investing in removing undifferentiated heavy lifting so that your teams can move faster. Let's talk a little bit more about the ML stack and all the layers. At the bottom layer, we have something which we call as frameworks and infrastructure. And this is for ML experts and practitioners. We're talking about advanced developers and data scientists who are comfortable building, tuning, training, and deploying their own models. And they want to work at framework and at chipset level. AWS supports all major frameworks, including TensorFlow, MXNet, PyTorch, Caffe2, etc. And these expert practitioners can use AWS Deep Learning AMIs or Amazon Machine Images, or even deep learning containers, which are fully configured with the latest versions of the most popular deep learning frameworks as well as tools. So you have a lot of options out there which you can use as you're training your models. Next up, for fast, cost-effective ML model training, our Amazon EC2 P4D instances are the most powerful GPU-based instances available on cloud. To help customers even have more cost-effective models when they are training their deep learning ML models, our EC2 instances powered by Gaudi accelerators from Habana Labs, which is an Intel company, deliver up to 40% better price performance than GPU-based instances. And we also have AWS Trainium, which is a high-performance ML training chip custom designed by AWS to deliver most cost-effective ML training in the cloud. Next up is middle layer. And in the middle layer, we have something known as ML services. And this is for data scientists and developers. And ideally, if we want our machine learning to be as expensive or to as expansive as we really want it to be, we want to make sure that it is accessible to people who are not machine learning practitioners. Like they are not advanced users of machine learning frameworks. And today, there are very few expert practitioners are present out there. So that's why we built Amazon SageMaker, which is a fully managed service that removes heavy lifting, complexity, guesswork from each step of a machine learning process, empowering developers and data scientists to successfully use machine learning. SageMaker is a step-level change for everyday developers and data scientists, and they can use SageMaker to access and build machine learning models. You can easily use SageMaker to build machine learning models for a wide variety of use cases, anything from computer vision to predicting customer behavior. At the top of this layer are AI services. that mimic human cognition. And this is specifically for customers who don't want to build ML models. These services make it really easy to incorporate artificial intelligence and features like text to speech, transcribing audio to text, translating text into multiple languages, and you can incorporate these features into applications without having to build your own ML algorithms. So we have a lot of examples for services in this area. For example, Amazon Rekognition can be used for video recognition. You can use Amazon Polly for translating text to speech, Amazon Lex for building chatbots, and also Amazon Kendra for internal enterprise search. And besides that, we have a bunch of other Amazon capabilities which have been exposed as AI services, such as Amazon Fraud Detector for identifying potentially fraudulent online activities. You also have Amazon Forecast for building accurate forecasting models, and Amazon Personalize for delivering personalized recommendations. So while we talked about AWS ML Stack, building your team skills is not an easy task. Like when you think about building your own ML skills or your team skills, sometimes you don't know where you can get started. And that's why we have a lot of online courses available on AWS ML training and certifications. You also have courses available on online framework like Udacity, Coursera, or EDX. At the same point of time, we know a lot of developers who typically learn by doing hands-on training. Like for example, if I'm learning about something, I will get the most out of it if I'm doing hands-on training. That's why we have built a lot of services and tools which can be used by developers to get started when they are trying to go for hands-on machine learning training. And that's why we have Amazon Deep Composer, which can give you hands-on for generative AI. You also have Deep Lens, which can help you get started with computer vision. And then last, we have Amazon Deep Racer, which makes reinforcement learning fun, and you can get started with hands-on training. Let's talk a little bit more about AWS Deep Racer. So AWS Deep Racer literally puts reinforcement learning in the hands of everyday developers, and no matter what your ML skill set is. And AWS Deep Racer is an autonomous 1/18th scale race car, which is designed to test reinforcement learning models by racing on a physical track. By using cameras to view the track and reinforcement learning model to control throttle and steering, the car actually shows you how you can train models in a simulated environment and how you can run those models on a physical track in real world scenarios. And the image which you are seeing on this screen, this is from the first generation Deep Racer. I have that over here with me right now. So this is the first generation Deep Racer. If you see, it has a camera up front, which can be used to train your reinforcement learning models. We also launched Amazon or AWS Deep Racer Evo, which is the next generation in autonomous racing. It comes fully equipped with stereo cameras and LiDAR sensors. LiDAR stands for light detection and ranging. And these sensors can enable our customers and Deep Racer participants to participate in object avoidance and head-to-head racing, and giving developers a lot of other options where they can train and tune their models. In object avoidance races, developers use the sensors to detect and avoid objects which are placed on track. And the forward-facing cameras, which are on Deep Racer Evo, they can help the car sense depth in the image, and that way they can help car to avoid obstacles as they are coming up from front of the track. There is also a LiDAR sensor which can help sense and detect objects which are behind or besides the car. I have a Deep Racer Evo with me as well. If you see over here, there are two cameras up front. These constitute together as the stereo cameras. We also have a LiDAR. If you see over here, which can help detect the motion behind the car and on the sides of the car. Little bit more about AWS Deep Racer Evo. So as we talked, it's 1/18th the scale of a car. It has Intel Atom processor. It also has Intel's distribution of OpenVINO toolkit. OpenVINO stands for Open Visual Inference and Neural Network Optimization. So the models which you are building on a simulated environment, they can be deployed on the Deep Racer car using OpenVINO for faster inferencing as well as optimization. The car runs an Ubuntu operating system, and it is also equipped with Wi-Fi as well as a robotic operating system. So we talked about Deep Racer, and if you have mastered Deep Racer before, and if you have participated in racing, Evo extends the learning with new challenges to solve for. And if you already have the first generation Deep Racer, and if all you need to do is buy a sensor kit, which can be deployed on that Deep Racer, and you can upgrade your Deep Racer with Deep Racer Evo functionality. There are a few other features also available within Deep Racer. Let's say if you are not able to buy Deep Racer, you don't have to wait for your Deep Racer to show up and then so that you can start training. You have you have the options to start in AWS console, where there is a 3D simulator where you can start the building, training, as well as evaluation of your models. And while you are training on 3D racing simulator, you can also participate in AWS Deep Racer leagues, or even start your own league. Like you can work on community races where you can start a league where people can participate from within your organization or from within your teams. And we'll try to talk about community races in a little bit more detail in later part of this presentation. So let's talk about why Deep Racer is important. And we all know like that building ML skills are critical for the future. The growth of artificial intelligence would create up to 58 million new jobs in next few years. And this is stated by the World Economic Forum. Yet, according to another research from Tencent Research Institute, it is estimated that we currently only have 300,000 AI engineers worldwide. So there is a big gap. And as you can see, because of this gap, there is a unique and immediate opportunity for us to develop unique experiences and creative experiences to introduce people like you, developers and engineers who are trying to design workloads and work within their organizations, to the whole concept of artificial intelligence as well as reinforcement learning. These experiences in the field of ML, like deep learning, reinforcement learning, and so on, will expand your skills and help close the talent gap. Some of the benefits which we have seen working with Deep Racer across our customers. Deep Racer can help you get started with machine learning quickly with hands-on tutorials that help you understand the basics of machine learning, start training reinforcement learning models, and test them in an exciting autonomous or in a car racing experience. And while you're learning about these new skills, you can test these new skills in Deep Racer 3D simulator, experiment with different kind of sensor configurations, inputs, different latest reinforcement learning algorithms, and also neural network configurations. And last but not the least, the AWS Deep Racer League provides an opportunity for you to compete for prizes and for glory and meet fellow machine learning enthusiasts. So you can foster a team building as well as competition as you are competing against other members of your community. And you can always share ideas and insights on how to succeed and create your own private virtual race and compete with your colleagues. Since the launch of AWS Deep Racer in 2018, AWS Solutions Architects and Pit Crew, the Deep Racer Pit Crew, have been working with various customers in enterprises, enterprise customers, or even in public sector. They have received positive feedback on how Deep Racer events have helped their teams to have a better understanding of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So on the slide, we can see like we have two testimonials from two of our enterprise customers. All right. So we talked about DeepRacer. We had a high level overview of what DeepRacer service is and what it is. Let's see what are the options available to you as a customer while you're trying to engage with AWS solutions architects and you're trying to organize DeepRacer events within your company or within your organizations. So let's go through in-person AWS DeepRacer events, and we will go through various options, what we have seen working with various customers outside. So a typical one-day workshop and race example format is shown over here. What that means is that it consists of an in-person workshop for attendees. The workshop is led by AWS DeepRacer Pit Crew and solutions architects. It goes through the fundamentals of reinforcement learning and gives participants an opportunity to train their first model. And typically, for this example, since this is an in-person workshop, the AWS solution architects will be present on site, and they can take that session and they can answer any questions from the audience as well. And this is typically followed by an in-person race where people who have taken that workshop the same day, let's say in the morning, they can get some time to train their models, and then they can bring those models to this race, and they can see how those models are performing in a real world scenario. And from a data point of view, we can usually say that it can take 5 minutes per racer as they are racing on these tracks, and based on that, we can plan for the whole event duration. The same one-day workshop can be extended to a 2-day workshop example format as well. And similar to a one-day workshop, a 2-day workshop example will start with a 2-hour workshop where solution architects and DeepRacer Pit Crew will talk about reinforcement learning. They will train people how they can get started with their first reinforcement learning model. And then this is followed by the actual in-person race, which may not take the same day. So that essentially helps our customers and participants to get more time as they're training their models, and they will get more time to tune those models and be better prepared for the races. We also have something which is called as custom format. So if you are a large organization or a large enterprise with multiple offices spread across, let's say, North America or around the globe, we have something called a custom format where if organization has multiple regional offices, we can have these workshops in each of these regional offices, and multiple training opportunities are there, and these sessions can be had for different locations. This can be followed by doing a month-long of virtual league qualifier races. So people from each of these offices can compete against other people or their other colleagues in a virtual race. And we'll talk about this as we will create our community races later in this presentation. And this particular option gives people who are present in different areas to compete against each other, and that can be followed by an in-person competition where winners from those offices or those locations can be brought together, and they can have another virtual race if needed, or they can compete on a physical track. And the challenge can be on a same track, or they can be given a new track as well. Let's quickly compare some of the in-person options which we just discussed, and based on each of these options, like we have 1-day workshop or 2-day workshop or a custom format, depending on the goals of your organization and depending on the goals of your teams, you can pick and choose from one of these options and work with AWS teams to make these events successful for your organization. All right, let's talk about virtual AWS DeepRacer events overview. Similar to the way we just talked about physical AWS DeepRacer events, we also have an option where customers can choose to have these events in a virtual environment. What that means is that a virtual workshop where AWS solutions architects as well as deep racer pit crews can take a workshop. It can vary from 90 minutes to 2 hours, where people get to know about deep racer. They can train their first model, and they can be prepared for the competition. And this can be followed by creating an intra-company league, where a community race can be created, where people who have trained their models, they can test those models in that intra-company league. And we can always choose winners from that league. Let's say top 10 winners can be chosen on a Friday, and they can be given another challenge, another virtual environment where they can bring their models and have another race. And at the end, the top 3 or top 5 racers can be or the winners can be announced from there. So that's one example of doing a virtual league within your organization, which can span, let's say, 2 weeks. We talked about creating an intra-company league or community race. This image shows an example of a community race which has been created. If you see, you as an participant, you can enter that race from your AWS console. If you have trained a model, you can submit that model for evaluation. You can also see how your model performed. You can also see the leaderboard, that who is actually doing the best at that point of time. And we will be talking a little bit more about this particular community race and the way you can create these community races in our next section of the presentation. Let's talk a little bit more about the other formats which are available when we look at virtual races. Let's say if you want to do a live race where you want people to be racing at a certain time, and everybody is aware of that, and if you want to set up a live race for your organization, again, this can get started with a 2-hour workshop, which is taken by AWS solutions architects, where people get to know about machine learning, reinforcement learning, and AWS Deep Racer. This is followed by people training and tuning and testing their deep racer models within their own AWS accounts. And from there, we can create a live race where people can show up on a certain date and time, and they can see that how their models are performing in a live environment. So we will be seeing again demos for this particular community race, the live community race, and you will see how you can bring your models and see them in action in real. Another example I want to share is live streamed race on Twitch. This is also another example of virtual community races, which begins with a workshop on let's say on a Monday, 2-hour workshop. People talk about reinforcement learning. They get to know about Deep Racer, which is followed by creating a community race. Again, it can be a community race within a team or within an organization, where people can compete against each other so that they know who's the best. And from there, when the winners are decided, they can be either given a new private challenge, a new community race challenge, or they can be and the winner from that challenge, they can be brought over to actually race their cars on a physical track. And this can be broadcasted or live streamed over Twitch if you want it to be a public event. Okay, again, comparing the 3 events which we talked about for virtual races, you have virtual leagues, which can span from 2 weeks, and which can cater to up to 100 people. You also have virtual live races, where the number of people are comparatively less. If you want to go for really large events, Twitch live stream and that particular example can give you more options if there are more people within your organization as they're training for Deep Racer and learning about reinforcement learning. All right, so let's switch gears and talk about how you can create your community races using AWS Deep Racer console. So we will see what are some of the options available to you within AWS Deep Racer console as you're trying to create these races. And before we go over that, let's quickly talk about AWS Deep Racer console itself. So AWS Deep Racer simulation architecture, if we see this image, essentially AWS Deep Racer is an abstraction. What it means is that behind the scenes, we are using a lot of other AWS services, which are used by AWS Deep Racer service to train models and even to create your 3D simulation environments. So behind the scenes, these multiple services, they together make the AWS Deep Racer possible. Like for example, Amazon SageMaker trains your reinforcement learning models. AWS RoboMaker provides your 3D simulation environment. Amazon S3 stores your models, and CloudWatch is used for checking logs. Amazon Kinesis Video Streams displays the video in the console. And if you have used all of the services from within your Deep Racer, and if you have created your model, you can download and run that model on an actual car, and that uses Intel OpenVINO toolkit to enable model optimization and fast inferencing. So, having talked about Deep Racer simulation architecture as well as Deep Racer console, let's see how you can create your community races when you are logged into your AWS console. So AWS will provide you a lot of options to create these community races, and creating a community race is fairly straightforward. When you are on the AWS screen, you can go to community races, and then you can select create race, which will give you, which will take you to the next screen and will give you a wizard-like experience to put options of based on your requirements, and you can start creating your races. Let's say if you have clicked on create race in the previous example, you will be taken to this screen where you will have a lot of options. And let's talk about some of the terms which we are showing over here, which are important when you look at community races, right? First of all, before you create your community race, you want to make sure that whether you want to create a classic race or whether you want to create a live race, it all depends on your requirements and and your team's requirements. And if you're creating a live race, is it going to be broadcasted internally within your organization, or you are going to broadcast it over public internet? So once you have decided what kind of races you want to build, you can actually go ahead and use AWS Deep Racer console and start creating your community races. But let's define some terms over here, which we are seeing on this screen. So first of all, what is a classic race? A classic races are asynchronous events that do not require real-time interaction. So what that means is, once you have created this race, the participants must receive an invitation link to submit a model for that race. And racers can submit unlimited amount of models as long as the race is still on, and then and they can continue to submit models if they want to climb up in the leaderboard. The speed controls for this for the classic races are not available. What that means is, if you have submitted a model, the evaluation will happen in the background. You will not have an option to control the speed of the car as it is racing on the track. And then results and videos for classic races are viewable for submitted models. All classic races are private events. And I'll show you as part of the demos how to create a classic race and also submit a model in next few minutes. That brings us to the live race, which is the second option over here. Unlike classic races, which are asynchronous events, where once the races are created and participants can continue to submit their model, real-time races or live races are more synchronous events, and that will occur in a certain time based on the way we set it up, and they can range from, like, the scope of this race can range from a small race to a larger race as well. Like when I say small race, that means you have one race organizer and one video conference which is being shared by all the racers, and you have a small team of people who are managing the race versus a team of organizers, commentators, broadcasters for a large event. One important difference between a live race and a classic race is live race will give you an option to disable submissions of the models. Like if you want your participants to be aware that the model submission for the live race will be closed before some time the race starts, you have that option. And participants can submit multiple models, but only the last submitted model before the race starts will be raced during the event. And during the live race, the queued participants, as they are racing, they have the option of choosing interactive speed controls to give their model a competitive edge when their turn is up. And like classic races, participants in live races must also receive an invitation link to participate in a race. And but you as an organizer, you can choose to broadcast the event privately or even publicly using live streaming service like Twitch. Like in this image, we are also seeing some races types. Like race types, they would increase in complexity as well as difficulty, from time trial to object avoidance to head to bot. For the first time races, for the first time racers, we always recommend time trial. Time trial requires only one camera, so that the total amount of time it takes for you to train your model and for the model to converge is comparatively less. While you are creating your community races, you also have a lot of options for the tracks which you can pick and choose. You have the options to pick a track which is from based on the popularity of the track, from most to least popular. You also have a difficulty option as well as length of the track. So while you're setting up your race, you will see that as an option while you're choosing a track for the actual race. So this image shows a created classic race. Let's say if you go through that wizard and you fill up all the options, and once the race is created, you will see a screen like this. Within this screen, you will be you can go to that invitation tab, and you can copy that invitation link and send it to your participants who are participating in that race, so that they can submit their models. And this can be done over your emails. We also give an email template, which again we will see as part of our demo. All classic races are private races and can only be seen by racers who have that invitation link. So that way you can keep your race private as well. And as your classic race time frame comes to a close, you can take a note of who all from participants have submitted their models. And if you see someone has not submitted a model, you can reach out to that person and tell him to submit their model. So as an organizer, you have that option where you can see under the racers tab. All right. Similar to classic race, this example is showing a live race example. One main difference from classic race is, if you see, there is a button for selecting model entries. You can keep model entries submission to be open, or you can close it down. So you have an option to close the submission of the models before the race even starts. So that way you can work with your participants if you want to close the submission, maybe some hours before the actual race starts. And you also have some other documentation links which you see on the screen, like we are talking about live streaming best practices. If you want to set up your own broadcast, there are step-by-step instructions which you can follow as you are creating your broadcast for this particular race. This image shows us when a live race is created. This is the organizer or administrator view. And on the screen there are a lot of tools available for you as an organizer. First of all, like there is an option that you can actually launch a simulator where the actual race can be started up to an hour before the race starts using this simulation. Also, you can see the leaderboard. You also have the option of choosing the queue, like the way or the order in which the racers will be launched into the track. You can control that, and you can also toggle between the model entries if they are enabled, or if they are open for submission, or if you can close them. And one thing to note over here is that you cannot launch your racers until the model submission is switched off. All right. So I've talked for some time around community races. I have given you information about classic races as well as live races. Let's go through some of the demos, and we will go through AWS console, and we'll walk through the console to create a virtual race for both classic races as well as live races, and how you can submit a pre-trained model. And for the purposes of this demo, we have used pre-trained models for people who have not attended DPR 201, which is about get rolling with machine learning on AWS Deep Racer. I will recommend for you to attend that session as well, because that will help you get started with creating your first model when you are working with AWS Deep Racer. So let's dive into our demos. Let's create our first community race. To begin creating a community race, we need to go to AWS Deep Racer console. You can do that either from the recently visited services, or you can also search for AWS Deep Racer at the top. When you are taken to the AWS Deep Racer console, you have to search for community races. And on the community races page, we will select create a race. So on this page, we will choose the competition format. For this example, I'm going to choose classic race. We can also choose from the various races type, starting from time trial to object avoidance to head to bot. Let's choose time trial for this example. Let's give our race a name and the race dates. Please note that the race dates are in 24-hour format. We can also select the track on which we intend to race, and you can choose from wide variety of options for the tracks. For this example, I'm going to choose 2019 Deep Racer Championship Cup. If we keep scrolling at the bottom, we will be given some other options like ranking method, minimum laps, and off-track penalty. Let's choose the best lap time as a ranking method, and let's choose 1 consecutive lap for the minimum laps, and 3 seconds as the default option for off-track penalty. With this, let's select next. So on this page, we can review all the race details and the options which we have given so far. If you want to change any particular option, you can always do that by clicking edit or even going to the previous page. And when we have finalized all the options, we can go ahead and select submit. When we hit submit, we will be given an invitation link which we can use to invite other racers. You can copy this invitation link and you can share with other racers over email or over your favorite social media application. Let's submit a model to the community race which we just created. For submitting models to community races, the participants will need to have access to AWS account to train their models and submit that to the virtual race. So for this demo, I am logged into an AWS account, which is going to be used by a participant. And we already have the link which was sent to us by the race creator. This is again the same link which we saw in our previous race creation demo. So I'm going to copy that, and I will go to that link, and I will be taken to that race as a participant. And in this page, if we see, our name is given by AWS as a nested state hashtag 4025, and we can enter the race by clicking enter race. And when we are taken to the next page, we can actually select a model which we can submit to the race. So for the purposes of this demo, I have trained a model already which I can submit, and I'm going to choose that, and I will say enter race. And we are able to see that our model was submitted to this community race for the time trials, and our results should be available within the next 10 minutes. while we already have had a model and we submitted that for the race, you can always train your new model and submit for the same race. Let's see the results of our submission. So if I am logged in as a participant into my AWS account, and after I have submitted my model, I can go back to AWS Deep Racer, and on the screen I will go to community races, and over here I will see the community race which we are participating in. We can go to leaderboard, and over here we are able to see that we are currently ranked number 2 out of total 2 participants. We can always see how our model performed by clicking on this video. And we saw that our model took 28 seconds, and we can always improve on that because someone else is already doing 21 seconds. So what that means is you have the option to train another model and submit it to the same community race. So for that, assuming you have created another model, you can go to race again, and you can choose that model and then submit it for another evaluation. Let's create another community race, which is going to be a live race. So for that, we will go to AWS Deep Racer. On this page, we'll select community races and select create race. On this page, we will choose a live race as a competition format. For the race type, we will choose time trial. We will give our race a name and then select time. Please note that 24-hour format applies for these times, and also live races can run up to 4 hours. Let's select next. So on this page, we can see all the options which we have chosen. You can modify them by selecting edit or going to previous. Once you have decided all the options which are going to be used by you for your race, you can select submit. And on this page, we will be given an invitation link which can be used by the race creator to share with all the participants. Let's take a look at the live race which we just created in a little bit more details. So for that, we will go to AWS Deep Racer service, and we'll again select community races, and this time we'll select manage races, and this will bring us to a screen where we can see all the races which have been created in this AWS account. We will select the race which we created for our live race, and that will bring us to this page, which is going to show us a lot of details around the race. Few things to note over here are that you can control the model submissions for a live race using this button, and by disabling it, participants will not be able to submit any models for that race. And this can be useful for you as a race organizer or administrator, that if you want to control the submission maybe a few hours before the race starts. Few other things to note over here are that you have some live streaming best practices which are shown over here. You can use these documentations as you are setting up your broadcast for your live race hosting. You also have this tab where you can again look at the invitation link, which can be shared by you with all the race participants. You also have an email template which can be utilized for sending out emails to all the racers. On the top right hand side, we have this go to race button. Selecting that will bring us to our main race page. So you have a lot of controls from an organizer point of view. You have a race control panel or a race organizer control panel, which can be utilized to start a live racing simulator up to an hour before the actual race starts. You also have a leaderboard on the right hand side, and you also have this part of this part of the dashboard where you can see all the racers who have submitted the models and which are waiting for the race to start. Let's see how we can run a live race. So for that, we will go to AWS Deep Racer. I'll go to Community Races, and from there we will go to our live race. And this is the race which we created. So over here, in our live race, before we can get started with the live race, we will have to make sure that we are able to launch the simulator. And it usually takes some time for a simulator to get started. And for the purposes of this demo, I have done that already. So we have our simulator up and running right now, and we can go ahead and launch our first racer. So for that, we will disable the model entries, and then we will hit launch to launch our first racer. All right. So I hope you found the demos informational. You were able to see how you can quickly create community races, how you can create a live race, and the tools which are available to you from broadcast point of view as well. There are a lot of additional resources which are available to you, which you can utilize as you are advancing through your journey of learning about Deep Racer. We have a Slack community, and some of those links are available over here. You also have workshops which you can follow using documentation provided within GitHub. We also have a free video course, and then there are some links around tips as well as some forums. And the last one is around Intel distribution of OpenVINO toolkit. Please take a read about that also, that how it actually helps you for faster inferencing as well as model optimization. Thanks for attending this session.